Human relationships are not just emotional exchanges, they are like psychological ecosystems, delicate and complex. When deceit enters that system, it doesn't only break trust, it shatters the shared reality two people have agreed to create together. In the intimate bond between a man and a woman, there is often an unspoken agreement, honesty, respect, and emotional presence. But when a man starts hiding another woman, he isn't simply making a poor choice, he's rewriting the very structure of the relationship. And if you don't have the awareness to notice those early ripples, the whole foundation can crumble before you even understand what happened. This isn't about suspicion, it's about awareness. It's not about paranoia, it's about recognizing patterns. When you start to observe, not with emotion, but with clarity, you begin to see that people always leave traces, even when they're trying to hide. A man doesn't have to confess to show you the truth. His behavior, his energy, the small changes in his routine, they all speak louder than words. You don't need proof in the traditional sense. You need strength, clarity, and the courage to trust what you already feel. When a man is hiding another woman, one of the most subtle yet harmful tactics he often uses is avoiding responsibility through deflection. It usually doesn't start with obvious betrayals or loud arguments. It begins with a quiet wearing away of accountability. He shifts conversations away from his own actions and tries to paint your valid concerns as overreactions or emotional instability. This is a defense mechanism rooted in his need to protect his ego and keep control over the narrative. Deflection gives him the ability to decide what stays visible and what remains in the shadows. It's a clever way to avoid the weight of guilt while still holding on to the benefits of your trust and emotional investment. At first, it might seem like minor defensiveness. You ask a simple question, maybe about where he was, why he didn't reply to your message, or why his tone feels different, and he responds with irritation or sarcasm. That irritation isn't just frustration, it's a form of emotional disguise. It shuts the conversation down and makes you feel like you're the one causing problems. Too sensitive, too insecure, or too controlling. But the truth is, you're reacting to a change in the emotional rhythm of the relationship, something your intuition has already picked up. Because he is determined to keep his secret, he works to undermine your perception. Through subtle emotional manipulation, he starts teaching you to doubt yourself. This pattern can grow into something far more toxic. He might begin suggesting that you're equally responsible for the distance between you, or that your past behavior pushed him into secrecy. He uses moments from your history as weapons, turning your vulnerabilities against you to silence your questions. You may hear things like, "You've always been so suspicious," or "I can't even talk to you without you overreacting." These aren't harmless comments, they're psychological tools designed to shame you and stop you from probing deeper. What he's really doing is projecting his guilt onto you, twisting your emotions so that you start censoring your own thoughts before you ever confront him again. The real danger lies here. Once this cycle takes hold, it begins to alter how you see yourself in the relationship. You start believing that asking questions or seeking clarity is somehow a betrayal of trust. You begin worrying more about how your concerns might upset him than about what his answers would reveal. This inner conflict, a battle between your gut instinct and your trained self-doubt, can leave you emotionally frozen. You find yourself making excuses for him. He's tired, work has been stressful, maybe you're just imagining things. And little by little, you betray your own truth to protect an illusion of trust. Deflection isn't just avoidance, it's a calculated form of emotional control. A man who's hiding another woman can't afford to let you get too close to the truth. So he uses his words, his tone, his timing, even moments of tenderness as tools to distract and confuse you. He may pick fights to create distance, or become unexpectedly affectionate to throw you off. This back and forth keeps you off balance, never knowing which version of him you'll encounter next, and in that confusion, your ability to see clearly fades. The most dangerous part of this isn't even the betrayal itself, it's how it slowly erodes your trust in yourself. When you're constantly made to feel your concerns are silly or dramatic, You begin silencing your own voice. You start fearing your own intuition, and when a woman disconnects from her inner knowing, she becomes easier to control, easier to pacify, and easier to replace emotionally, because she has been conditioned to stay quiet, even in moments of pain. So, how do you break this pattern? Not by fighting fire with fire, but by stepping back and finding clarity. Take the emotions out of it for a moment and ask yourself the harder questions. Does his behavior feel like love or like avoidance? Does he bring me calm, or am I always trying not to upset him? Shift your focus away from convincing him and toward reconnecting with what you already sense, because the moment you stop arguing for your worth and start observing his patterns, you begin to reclaim your power. Seeing through deflection isn't about catching a man in a lie. It's about realizing when someone cares more about protecting their secrets than protecting your heart. Once you see that clearly, the question isn't whether you're enough. It's whether he's worthy of being with a woman who already is. When a man is hiding another woman, another common and overlooked shift is in how he talks about his need for privacy. Suddenly, what used to feel like a shared life begins to split in two, emotionally, mentally, even physically. He starts saying he needs space or time alone, but not in a way that feels healthy and balanced. Instead, it feels like he's withdrawing emotionally, using his independence as a shield to avoid questions, hide his whereabouts, and dismiss your concerns. There's an important difference between privacy and secrecy. Every person has a right to private thoughts, moments of solitude and personal freedom. But when a man starts turning the life you once shared into a fortress of hidden compartments, he's not practicing independence. He's building walls to keep you out. He becomes selective about his time, vague about his schedule, and defensive when you ask questions that used to flow easily between you. What you're witnessing isn't growth, it's retreat. And often this retreat is a cover for another connection being nurtured in the shadows. One of the earliest signs shows in how he treats his phone. You may have sat next to him while he scrolled, or he would take calls without a second thought. Now, he keeps his phone face down, leaves the room to reply to messages, and creates new boundaries around technology under the excuse of needing peace or focus. But what he's really doing is setting up barriers to protect his secret. You'll notice subtle shifts. He doesn't laugh as much when you're around, yet you hear him laughing alone in another room. He spends more time in digital spaces, while becoming less present in the physical ones you share. This isn't a man taking care of his mental health. This is someone building a hidden life behind a screen. His emotional availability mirrors this guarded stance. He no longer opens up his thoughts to you. Conversations that used to feel alive become short and flat. When you ask how his day went, he says fine. When you ask what's on his mind, he replies nothing important. This deliberate detachment creates a void, one you can feel but struggle to explain. And if you press for more, he accuses you of being nosy or controlling. This isn't about him preserving his individuality, it's about silencing your questions so his secret stays safe. He might even start exaggerating how much he enjoys being alone, how drained he feels by too much interaction, or how much me time he needs. But these declarations feel forced, out of sync with the emotional flow you once shared. It's not natural growth, it's an abrupt shift. What he's seeking isn't balance, it's cover. The more he celebrates this newfound independence, the more alone you start to feel within the relationship. It's important to understand that this isn't always driven by malicious intent. Sometimes even he is conflicted. Deep down he knows he's stepping toward betrayal. But instead of facing that truth directly, he builds walls to avoid the confrontation, both with you and with himself. He convinces himself that keeping these two worlds separate is a form of self-care or self-preservation. He believes no one gets hurt if the lines never cross. But what he fails to see is that his silence, his withdrawal, and his guarded behavior are already creating wounds. Emotional deception cuts as deeply as physical betrayal because it corrodes the trust that intimacy depends on. So as you start feeling shut out, your natural reaction is to try harder, to be more understanding, give him more space, ask fewer questions. You begin to shrink yourself in order to accommodate his growing distance. But no woman should have to dim her needs to tolerate secrecy. True independence in a relationship should strengthen connection, not dissolve it. If his desire for privacy feels like abandonment, then it's not privacy he's seeking, it's permission to detach without facing the consequences. The real question isn't how to win your way back into his guarded world, it's this: why are you settling for exclusion in a relationship that once promised closeness? When a man hides behind the mask of independence to shield another woman's presence in his life, he's not just lying to you. He's rewriting the terms of your relationship without asking for your consent. That isn't a boundary, it's a betrayal. Once you see it for what it is, your role isn't to pull him closer, it's to reclaim your worth and step out of the shadows he's created. When a man begins hiding another woman, one of the clearest signs is his emotional withdrawal. It doesn't happen overnight, nor does it come with any announcement. It happens in layers, like a curtain slowly being drawn across a window, dimming the light until the room you once shared no longer feels like home. You start noticing his absence, even when he's sitting right beside you. He becomes a silent figure, going through the motions, maintaining routines, but lacking the warmth, curiosity, and genuine spark that once defined your bond. His body remains, but his mind and heart have already started drifting elsewhere. At first you might tell yourself he's just stressed. He says work is overwhelming, that he's tired, that he needs to unplug. And because you care,